Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of BCS Community Connections. Today on the show, I'm actually honored to have Mr. Terrance Smith from Sawed-Off Crossfit. And so I was excited to get you in here. We were kind of talking a little bit before we sat down here at the table about, I've had virtually, all these other businesses on the show and everything, but I haven't had a gym owner yet on the show.
First one, I'll take it.
Yeah, man. So we wanted to get you off in here because there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk to you about personally and kind of get people familiar with Sawed-Off, maybe if they're not familiar with where you're at and kind of with the history and everything. So you've been a part of the community. How long have you lived here in town?
I'm born and raised here.
Okay, so
born and raised, yeah.
I was going to say, I know you have ties because I know your dad works here in town. And
he's been here since, man, I want to say at least since about the 70s, I want to say.
Yeah.
Something like that. He's been here for a while. My mother has too. Both of them have been here for a while.
The funniest part, I mean, you and I have known each other for a while. I've known you through my wife, but the funniest part was, and I don't even think you know the story, but your dad showed up one night. We were watching a fight over at somebody's house. I won't throw their name out here on the steel. And he walked in. I thought it was you. Okay. And I'm sure you get probably a lot of that where he walks in, y'all look identical, man. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about the history. So born and raised here in town. Let's talk about, we were talking about your college experience and everything, and you kind of made a decision that I'm going to jump off in this industry. Did you go straight from when you stepped out of college? Did you decide that you knew this was what you wanted to be? Was in physical fitness?
I honestly, I actually had zero clue as to what I wanted to do with my life. Wow. I had no clue what I wanted to do.
You just knew that you were ready to get it rolling.
Yeah, I just knew. I knew I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what I was like good at.
Yeah.
And there was nothing that I had, even like you said, have to find a passion. There was nothing that I really had a passion for.
Yeah.
And I had no clue what I wanted to do. So I just went job to job to job to job until I found what I wanted to do.
There's a lot of people in that boat that can speak to that. I mean, it's not very, and quite honestly, I mean, there's enough pressure on people, enough as it is. Like, what are you going to school for?
Yeah.
What's your major going to be? What's all this other stuff? And so there's a lot of people that step out that just go, man, I'm not sure, and hopefully something will materialize. So you kind of hopped a little bit, and then tell me kind of where everything started clicking and putting together for you.
I got into sales. I went from my first job, obviously, with McDonald's, probably thousands
Mine was
of other
Taco
people.
Bell.
Yeah, McDonald's, something in the fast food industry. And I did that from 14 to about 19. When I was 19, I left McDonald's and I worked at the Lincoln Center. I was around a bunch of kids pretty much all day. Left the Lincoln Center. When I left the Lincoln Center, I got into Advantage Rent-A-Car. My dad was working at the airport at the time. He's a police officer. He's working at the airport doing security there. He knew the guys that ran pretty much all of the car stuff over there. So he introduced me to him, got me an interview. My first job with them was actually to wash cars, but I've always been really good with computers. Mm-hmm. So even as a kid growing up at my house, like if anything ever happened to the computer, it was always me fixing it. Right. I was always messing with it. So once I got in there, I was I was washing cars, but I was also behind the desk a little bit, and I picked up on the software really quickly. A gentleman that was the manager there at the time, his name was Nick West. He was an Aggie. After about 2 months, he promoted me, put me behind the desk, and let me start doing sales. So sales is pretty much just talking to people. Yeah. You just have to be comfortable with asking people for money, which most people aren't comfortable with doing. I did that for a little while. When I left there, got into a job at Verizon Wireless. I got into phone sales. So did that. A gentleman, Ryan McDonald, was a really good friend of my dad's at the time, known him. Got a job there with him. Did Verizon Wireless for a little while, left Verizon, went to AT&T. So cell phones and sales. Yeah. That's what I was good at. Yeah. Electronics and sales. Knew I was good at.
Yeah, and you'd say, I mean, I'm going to guess it's probably a safe bet that those jobs, in particular, those probably two jobs, were probably the thing that made you comfortable talking with people, getting in front. I mean, I worked at Taco Bell. Yeah. We didn't have a drive-through at the one I worked at. If you can imagine that, there was actually a Taco Bell at one time that didn't have a drive-through. But in that role, I wasn't even running a register. It wasn't like I was carrying on small talk with people and talking to people. It wasn't until I got really into my first job, my first real main job, which I stuck with 20 years, was Walmart. Right. And the ability to be able to interact with people and talk to them day in, day out basis, especially in a sales industry like that, gives you that opportunity to kind of find where your voice is, your niche, to be able to I don't want to say guide people, but I mean, that's kind of what you're doing in sales.
Yeah. And that's, my mother and my father are really good with people and talking to people. Sure. So I spent a lot of time around my father, spent a lot of time around my mother. So I always just kind of watch them and how they talk to people. Like I tell people all the time, I get my heart and my smile from my mother. Like I love everybody. I talk to everybody. But my dad was really, in particular, was really good at just talking to people about absolutely, nothing. He's a police officer, so he has millions of stories. Sure. So he could talk literally about anything. And that's what I tried to, as I got older, I started kind of picking up on that. And then you get in sales where you have to talk to people and you have to be able to kind of level with people, because everybody's, different in terms of how they interact with people. So, some people want to talk, some people want to listen. So you have to kind of learn that kind of stuff. And that's where, being in sales like that, like I learned how to talk to people about absolutely nothing. Right. Which is, a great tool to kind of have in your bag, because some people don't know how to start conversations with people and kind of, pull and kind of tug things out of people. Yeah. And I learned that, coming through, at a young age, how to like talk to people and how to kind of pull things out of people. I think most people who are good people, who've developed good people skills or have a good interpersonal relationship with people, can meet people for the first time and just, act like they've known them for 20 years. There were guys along the way. You talked about your dad and your mom. Guys along the way in the same instance for me that I admired their ability to be able to just boom, on a dime, turn it on. And I walked up on certain conversations with people in that were supervisors of mine that I thought they actually knew the folks. I'm like, man, how long have you known that guy? Well, I just met him, So that obviously is a skill set that has come forward with you as you've moved forward. So tell me about getting into the physical industry where you're now looking at gym options and things like this. But I know the way that I know you is my wife would get up in the mornings and go to y'all worked out at Wolf Pen Creek, I think. We were at Wolf Pen Creek, the ice rink. Yep. Yeah. So y'all were doing boot camps at that time, and y'all meaning that you were with Trevor at that time. Correct. And so tell me how that transpired, how you got to that point. So Trevor's from Bryan. Trevor went to high school with my older brother. I didn't know him, but I met him when I got into sales for Verizon. He was one of the first customers that I ever had there. And one of the first questions, or not even first question, but, just kind of talking to him, when kind of helping him out, he had his own, boot camp business. Yeah. And he wanted me to come work out with him. And one of the first things he said was at 5:30 a.m. And, 5:30 a.m. Like, I don't want to wake up that early and go work out. So, I mean, for about a year, maybe almost 2 years, I was like, no way, dude, I'm not waking up at 5 a.m. Right. But at that time, I had already, and just kind of a little bit of, background on me in terms of workout. I played every sport coming through grade school. Even when I got into college, I was still playing, intramurals, playing club teams, that kind of thing. But I never really particularly loved working out. Right. Like I just did it because I was good at it. I was kind of a natural at it. And when you play, you have to. Yeah, I mean, I hated running, but I played basketball, played football, played soccer, ran track, that kind of thing. I hated running with a passion. Yeah. But that I never really learned how to work out. And even, as I got past that time, I stopped working out for a little while. Obviously you gain weight. I gained a little bit of weight. I got into college. My roommates at the time, he was going to work out at Gold's Gym. So I would go to Gold's Gym and work out with him. But it was, it was only upper body. We never did leg stuff. Like, just, you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. So I started working out with him, and it was stuff that at that point in time, I couldn't even do a pull-up really, without having some sort of like support, like a band. And that was even when I was in grade school. I couldn't do a pull-up to save my life. But started working out with him for some years, just kind of going back and forth. And I actually ended up liking it, like, man, this is fun. Like, I actually like enjoy this. It's nearly not fun when you're in the middle of it, when you're getting your once you're done. Yeah, when you're getting your butt kicked, it's really not fun. I'm not a complainer, but I never want to work out that hard, but I do it, and it's fun. But I ended up being really good at that. And after I'd say I was in sales at Verizon Wireless for a while. And then when I left Verizon Wireless, I went to AT&T. I was at AT&T. I loved the money there, but I didn't love it.
Right. Wasn't passion.
Yeah, it wasn't a passion. I mean, the money was really good, in sales in general. I mean, when you're in sales and you know what you're doing, you can make a great amount of money, which I did. And I loved the money, but I didn't love what I was doing. Yeah. It was just more of a chore to do it. But after I was looking at getting out of it, and when I was looking at getting out of it, Trevor was like, well, why don't you just come train for me? You can make a little bit of money training for me. I was like, that's not a bad idea. Why don't I try that? And I actually ended up being really good at that.
Yeah.
And I already had the sales experience, which is basically a huge part of training. Because, when most people, you can be the best trainer in the world, but if you can't sell someone on why they should work out with you and what you can bring to the table, you're not going to get anybody.
Right.
That's just a part of it. And, and you have to be likable,
yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up. So, I think when Deanna started, Deanna was doing the boot camp and it was just Trevor, I think, that was running it at that time. And then she's like, hey, I got a new trainer that's there. And she goes, his name's Terrance. We all call him T. And she goes, but he's really different. Yeah. And I think that was kind of the first thing was, Trevor had his way of doing it and you had your way of doing it. But I know particularly when we were talking about it, she had talked about how personal you were, but also at the same time, it was toughness as well too. Yeah. Like, you expected more from them and pushed them to give their best. And so that was something I think that for her, she really enjoyed that aspect of it in that, okay, well, I've been so used to training with Trevor over here, and then here comes T, and we've got this opportunity now to work out, and the workout feels different.
Yeah.
Even though y'all are still doing the same programs and stuff like that, and it's still the boot camp, and it's still everybody kind of working out together, she just felt like there was a different level, I guess, when she was working out and you were there. So a little feedback for you.
And
somewhat 15 years later
or
whatever.
About 15 years later. And, and that was one of the things that I loved about it when I initially started was just, I like I said earlier, I love people.
Yeah.
And it's a workout, but it didn't feel like a workout.
Right.
Like when they got into it, because it was, I was different than Trevor was. Like I said, Trevor had his way of running things, and I had my way of kind of going things. And that was, one of the things that anything that I did, I always wanted to kind of put my stamp on it and make it, how I do it. Like we're all different. I'm different from that trainer. I'm different from that trainer. Like this is how I want it.
I don't think anybody wants a cookie cutter coach.
Yeah.
I think that, and especially I think even in we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think even when you own your own gym, you don't want cookie cutter coaches that are like you. I think if anything, you want those different mix of personality types, different mix of people who have different understandings of people.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously want coaches that are going to bring out the best in people. But there are those coaches that are, man, let's get down to business.
Yeah.
And then there are those coaches that build relationship first and, business second and just, and each of those are looked at, and there's a client out there for each of those coaches.
Right.
I mean, there's those ones that you talk about, those 5:30 guys.
Yeah.
Those 5:30 guys are not about a whole lot of talking and then working out. It's like, look, I don't really, kind of like you said, I don't want to be here at 5:30.
No.
Let's go in, let's get this thing done, and let's get out.
And
of here.
I still say that to this day, like to people that come in, like people are like, man, I can't do the 5:30 class. I'm like, look. Nobody is away. There's a few crazy people that actually enjoy being up at 5:30 a.m. And it's like maybe one or two of them typically that are like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed bright and early in the morning at 5:30 a.m. But if you take 15 people, 2 of those that are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, the other 13 don't wake up until about 6:15 or 6:30 when the class is over with. Yeah. And then they're good.
Yeah. Now my day can start kind of deal.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I'm kind of the same way. Once I get up and get going, I'm good. But I'm not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You can ask my girl. Like when I get up in the morning, I don't say a word when I go in. Like when I get on my way in the car to where I'm going, then I wake up and I'm just fine. But my business partner, he 5:30 a.m. No, he doesn't.
Brian's the bushy-tailed.
Yeah, right. Brian doesn't do it. He does not like 5:30.
Oh, he's not the bushy-tailed.
No,
okay, all right.
Yeah, he's grumpy in the mornings at 5:30 a.m. I'm good, but he's the flip side of what I am.
Well, like I said, you got to have the opposite side of the coin here for everything.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So you're with Trevor. Did you jump from Trevor to Sawed-Off?
Yeah, I did. So
tell me how that transpired.
So I don't like taking orders from people. Yeah. I'll just say that. Okay. That's just to make it simple. But when you're a trainer, one, like I said, I'm a trainer, and two, I don't like taking orders from people.
Right.
But I can work with people.
Sure.
I'm good at that. I can bend. I don't break on certain things, but I bend. When I need to kind of make things work. But when you're working at a gym like that, or just in a gym, like if you're gonna do it for an extended period of time, some people, are okay with, just being a career coach and, doing their own thing. But for me to grow more, I had to leave where I was at and make my own thing, and being in it for so long. And, when I left there, I learned so much on what to do and what not to do, so I had that, 8, 9 year, almost 10-year experience of learning what to do when it came to training, and learning what to do when it came to boot camp, and learning what to do when it came to running a business and the do's and the don'ts of it.
Right.
That I had pretty much all the tools that I needed to push forward and open up my own gym and kind of do my own thing. So
tell me, you get hooked up with Brian.
Yeah.
And tell me, you guys basically at that point, when were y'all both involved in the setup of Sawed-Off?
Yes, we were. Okay. Yes, we were. There was actually 3 of us that were involved in it, but all 3 of us left where we were at with Trevor. We left there, and we'd already kind of got the wheels rolling on getting everything opened up. But we left there, got everything opened up, and started running through getting all the the intricacies. Because when you open your own business, everybody's like, oh, you just open your own business. Well, it's not that simple.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you got to get your DBA. You got to get all of this stuff lined up. With your taxes and everything. You got to get all this stuff lined up, and that's the little things that most people don't know about running your own business. They say you have your own business. Well, what do you do all day? Well, I don't just sit in the office.
Yeah.
Even when I'm not working, I'm still working.
Right.
So, it was 3 of us, me, myself, Brian, and another Brian, that was at Innovative Fitness too as well. And Brian Healy, the gentleman, he came in from Kansas. He was actually one of my coaches, where we were at it, with Trevor. Mm-hmm. Brian Shoppy, he was another one of my coaches that was there that I managed to as well. So it was all 3 of us, that had been doing CrossFit for an extended period of time, that left out of there, went out and opened up our own place.
So, and you said something earlier, I think, which is valuable for people to maybe, just to rebrush back over what you said. When you're working for someone, you learn the do's and don'ts. And, in your head, you're probably sitting there saying, man, if I open my own place, I wouldn't do this, but I would do this, or and so I'm sure during that time frame, and you've now come to realize, like, I need to branch out and do this on my own, so that I can be confident in what I know my abilities are here, and really taking it to another level, probably, because when you are working for somebody, you have an answer for somebody. There's a vision you have, but unfortunately, maybe the vision of the other person doesn't match up. And so, but it's not uncommon. I want to, my wife works in the industry, and there's been tons of time where she has seen, coaches that make a decision to jump out on their own, go open their own place. Now, it's a scary jump, because now all of a sudden, where you're in this location that has, you've already got your clientele built. Mm-hmm. You already have people that know who you are. You've built that relationship with them and everything else. There's a couple things that are happening there. Number one, you're hoping that you've built that relationship with folks, that they're going to trust that jump is going to work for them. And you're asking them to take a leap of faith also. And they don't always all go. Yeah. A lot of the times they're going to sit there and say, listen, man, this is where I've been. This is where it's home. This is where people that I work out with. Yeah. And so, but you got to trust in the process that those relationships that you've built are going to come back in the form of somebody showing up on your doorstep to sign up. Right. So you guys go out, y'all decide to open up Sawed-Off CrossFit. For people, if you're not here in the Bryan College Station area, was this just like a unanimous deal? Y'all were sitting down. Tell me how this name came about.
Man, that was one of the things that we agreed on, like, early, was like the name. Like everything else in terms of, like, like I say, like our logo that we came up with, Man, it took us a long while to come up with that logo. Like we were all like fighting each other over what the logo was going to look like. But the name came really, really quickly. The colors, in our logo, that all came really quickly. That was all just super smooth. So we coasted through that portion of it. Now the logo, that was a little different, but the name, Sawed-Off. Yeah, we ran with that quickly.
Yeah, and locally, I mean, everybody that's an Aggie obviously appreciates the name and everything else. And for those that aren't an Aggie or don't live here in town, we do this little thing here in town. So, for the people who maybe are out listening that don't come to A&M or haven't graduated from A&M or in the area, So you guys, now you're originally, now you're at the Harvey location. I saw y'all's location. It's pretty incredible where you're at now, but that wasn't where you started.
No, so our first spot was maybe about 5 minutes down the road off of Highway 30.
Right.
The gentleman that we ended up leasing that place from, and it was, so we looked at, I'd probably say before we got to the place, that we looked at maybe about 5 other locations, but they just didn't fit like what we were wanting to do.
Well, CrossFit's going to require a little bit different setup than just walking into a suite or something.
Yeah, and we looked at places like that. I mean, and we could have made it work, but it just didn't seem right. And the one place that we ended up going was out off of Highway 30, and I was like, man, before we even got there, I was like, man, that's kind of far out there.
Yes.
Like I don't know if we should go out there.
Yeah.
And Brian was like, come on, dude, just drive out there. Let's go check it out. See what it's like. So like, okay, fine. So I lived in Bryan off of William Joe Brown at the time. So it was maybe about 10-15 minute drive, because when you're driving down Boonville, you're hitting 20 different lights driving down Boonville. So it was a little bit of a drive hitting all the lights, but if I didn't hit them, it was fine. And I got out there and was like, okay, that wasn't that bad of a drive.
Right.
And it was connected to a Napa Auto Care, or a Napa Auto Zone place. They did car repairment and boat repair mainly, but it was on the right side of that, and the parking was a little iffy, but we made that work. But we got in, walked in. The front lobby space was huge. It was open and had like this race car theme, tile on the ground. Had a huge desk there already. They left us a nice chair there too as well, and it had it upstairs, which we were going to use that for childcare, and that ended up working out super well for us. And then we walked in, and it was probably about maybe 3,000 square feet worth of space, 5 garage doors, little back area. You run through there. There was an area to run down, and we got there and was like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah,
this is it. And the gentleman that leased it to us is an old ag. I went to high school with his son, and he was probably one of the coolest, or probably still is one of the coolest landlords that I've ever had, in terms of dealing with. But he gave us like the first 3 months we were there, gave us the first 3 months free,
nice,
on the lease there. And then from there, we went ahead with everything, and we were fine. And obviously we got there, and I was really confident that when I left the place that I did, that I had built enough great relationships where I would have people that would come, with us. And true to that, we opened up, and within the first, I'd say like week or so of being there, it was like, okay, we got to get more coach. We need another coach, because we were that busy already. So we grew super fast, and we even outgrew that place. And the gentleman, like I said, that leased it to us, the old ag, he came into us, I'd say maybe about a year and a half or so, maybe almost in there, and was like, hey, do y'all want y'all's own place? Of course we do. Yeah, of course we do.
Let me think about this.
Yeah, of course we do. And he was like, well, y'all think about what y'all want. Get with me next week, and we'll work something out. Put something together, met up with them, said basically, okay, hey, that's fine. I'll owner finance the entire thing for y'all. Y'all don't have to come out of pocket for anything. The place that y'all getting, y'all buy it from me.
This guy's not in real estate, is he?
So, and like I said, he's an older guy, and he does the commercial stuff around town. Yeah. So, he has all these places in town that he does, that he puts together and he builds. And for some reason, he took a liking to us, and he built us our own place that we bought, and we're mortgaging, and it's been probably one of the better things that.
So this is your current location?
Yep, this is our current location.
I drove by it. I actually didn't realize that y'all had moved at one point. Okay. I drove by it one day. I'm like, wow. I mean, because it was definitely. it was definitely an upgrade over where you were.
It is.
And I think your location's probably actually even better. The fact that you're not out on 30, although 30's starting to grow up.
Yeah, and 30 was actually really nice, but it's just 5 minutes away from town is still 5 minutes away from town.
Yeah.
5 more minutes away from A&M campus is still 5 more minutes away from A&M campus. And that's what we were missing on.
Your townies here are just going to be like, oh, man, that's the other side of the world that I got to drive to over there.
Exactly.
So.
And it's only about 5 minutes. But when in the grand scheme of things, for me, from where I live, it was, 18 to 20 minute drive versus, a 12-minute drive to where we're currently at. So, I mean.
And where probably a bunch of your clients were coming from South College Station, so it's, am I going to go around this way? I'm going to come up this way. I mean, it's almost kind of like a middle ground even to get to for a lot of those guys. So you moved to your new location. It's owner financed out to you guys. You're now, and I mean, it's legit. It looks great. I mean, y'all did an excellent job on building that thing out.
Yeah.
So you and Brian now are current partners in there. You lost your third one.
Yes.
So let's talk about a few things. We talked about the history, and you jumped out now. When you were working at Trevor's wasn't CrossFit, so to say. He was really still more geared around boot camps.
Yeah.
He was starting personal training, a lot of that stuff in his place. So tell me why CrossFit?
Well, Trevor, he did personal training there still, like that was one of the first things that I kind of got into too, like a little bit after, like teaching boot camps, like getting into personal training when we got our first location, which was inside of the ice rink. So I did personal training and I also taught boot camps, so that was always, there. CrossFit now, this is one of the people. A lot of people don't know this, but this is like one of the original towns that actually CrossFit was in.
Interesting.
When it first kind of got big, or not even per se big, but when it first started kind of growing up. This gentleman in town, Dutch Lowy. I went to high school with him. He was my neighbor. Lived like a few maybe down the street, maybe like 2 minutes down the street from where I was at. Another gentleman, Matt Mersky, who owns another CrossFit gym in town, Body Lab. Those were like the two first gyms, and Dutch was doing it out of his house, and then he opened up Black Box, and Matt Mersky, he had Body Lab. Those are the two. And there's a movie. It's called Every Second Counts. I want to say it's on Netflix too, or you can get it on that. You can get it anywhere, but it's called Every Second Counts. And those two guys were on there, and it even actually has like College Station actually on that actual movie.
Oh, interesting.
And that's where I discovered CrossFit from. Now, I didn't really per se do it with them. I just discovered it, and it just so happened that Thomas Park, kind of over in the College Hills area, which is where I grew up at and where Dutch was, we used to do these long runs when I was doing boot camp with Trevor, and we would always run past his house, and he was always in his garage doing CrossFit with people. So that was my first like discovery of it. From there, another gentleman, his name is Tanner Fidel, a good buddy of mine. Him and his brother own a gym in Tyler called Gym Fed. And he was the one that kind of got the ball kind of rolling a little bit more with CrossFit. And Trevor did too, a little bit in terms of like doing CrossFit. But the thing with CrossFit is that you can't say you're a CrossFit gym unless you're paying to do that.
Yeah, you're affiliated.
You have to be affiliated to say you do CrossFit. Now, I can say I'm CrossFit certified. I'm a CrossFit certified coach. I'm an L1 coach.
Right.
But I can't say I have a CrossFit gym. So I can have my CrossFit L1 and I can tell people that, but no, we don't do CrossFit here. Like that's not, you can call it something else if you want to, but if you say CrossFit, they're gonna come after you for it. But CrossFit was one of those things, and when you play sports, when you're an athlete, you're still looking for that little bit of a competitive edge, and it was everything is timed, everything is for weight, so it always kind of gave me that little bit of a competitive edge. And at that point, I was actually like enjoying fitness, so I enjoyed the competitive portion of it. Now, I wasn't super duper competitive. Like I did competitions, that kind of thing. But, I wasn't trying to per se take it anywhere, but I did enjoy the competitive portion of CrossFit.
So would you say that, and I realize your clientele is going to stretch a gambit of young to old, right? Yeah. But would you say that the majority, when you say the word CrossFit, and again, we talked about this before we came on air. I say CrossFit and I think, oh my gosh,
yeah,
man, I'm talking slinging a bunch of weight and guys that are just ripped and cut up and all this other stuff, and they're the extreme, right? Yeah. But what I also tend to identify with when I roll past a CrossFit place is I see a lot of young kids, a lot of college kids. So I also wonder if, as these kids come back to town, or if they come here for college or whatever, that CrossFit is something they can quickly identify with. Because we're talking about, CrossFit started in like 96, right? And like the first affiliated gym, I guess, to CrossFit was like 2000. So we're not, we're not talking about 50 years, 75 years, like a Gold's Gym. You're talking about something still fairly
still
new.
Young.
Yeah. And so, but it's this extreme. Now you can flip on your TV and you can watch the CrossFit games, and you can look at these guys and go, oh my gosh, like these guys are legit, right?
The CrossFit I do does not look like that.
Yeah, no. And I definitely would have probably died at the first location where those guys are working their way across the field lifting stuff, but, and I know a lot of people who do it and they're in great shape, the idea of CrossFit though, I think is probably more centered in probably to not a younger age group, but definitely into that age group where, I'm past the point of going to the gym and throwing around a bunch of weights and doing that kind of stuff, maybe solo. And now all of a sudden I'm looking for an environment that I can grow myself, but also I've got, and you made reference to it, where you're talking about the challenging, the aspect of it being competitive, right? That there are people around you that are also striving to be better at what they do. And so, and that's kind of the environment, I work out, but I work out in that type of environment where it's other people helping push me even further than I thought I could push myself. Yeah. And maybe, it's kind of funny. There's a guy that works out alongside of me. His name's David. I'm going to give him a shout out on here. David from Orange Theory out there. This dude's 58 years old. He's 10 years older than I am. Yeah. And I struggle to keep up with him, but he's inspiring from the idea that this guy comes up, he's doing the same thing that I'm doing, and he's doing it better than I'm doing it. And so I think that's that same deal in that CrossFit environment. Is there are guys in there, they all have a goal. Their goal obviously is get stronger, get in better shape, and it's definitely going to do all that. But it's also that camaraderie that gets built amongst that community. Before we sit down, we were talking about, CrossFit is notorious for its language, right? And so if you go...
There's abbreviations for everything. But and the abbreviations are made because it's, obviously it's a little bit easier to say this. And like once you get into it long enough, you know what the abbreviations are. But if you come in like the first day and you've never done CrossFit before, it's going to look like a foreign language up on the whiteboard. But, what's T to B, or what's HSPU, or what's HRPU?
Yeah, I've seen people take pictures on their phone like, here's my workout today. And I'm looking at this like, what in the world are you guys interpreting?
What's like what's hangs like it there? There's so many abbreviations for all that stuff.
Yeah. So, the community that gets built in there, they have their own language, yet they're all each other's fans. Yeah. Right? Like they're invested in themselves being in there. They want to get themselves physically fit and better, but also at that same time, they're invested in the people that are around them, because typically they're coming to the same classes, same times, that type of stuff. So they're also working around that same group of individuals, typically all the time in most cases. Now, granted, you may have open workout sessions or whatever where these guys can come to it, but on a day in, day out basis with guys that are getting into a routine, they're typically going to find a class, find something that works for them. That's going to be their people, and that's how they're going to run through this, right? And so that community that gets built with its own language and everything else, it tends to be, outside of the fact of just what CrossFit is in general, or how people at least view CrossFit, it tends to be a little overwhelming for people who, they're kind of like, first off, I don't know if I could do it. Yeah. Second off, I'm walking in and it's almost like I've walked into another, planet. I mean, I'm here with guys that are talking a language that I don't understand, things on the board that I can't interpret. I'm afraid I'm going to walk in there and I'm standing next to Joe over here who's throwing around 175 and a cling over his head. And I'm watching that with awe going, I don't know that I can lift a bar over my head. Yeah. So, and everybody kind of has this starting point. So to people who are thinking about, CrossFit as an option, what do you tell those guys that maybe that intimidation is the thing that's maybe keeping them from putting that toe in the water to check it out?
I would say one of the things that, and just talking kind of, from my perspective, as a kid, I was never truly taught how to work out. So with most people, they've never really been taught to work out. So like, for instance, I'm a CrossFit coach, but I also like personal train. Right. I bring in a lot of, younger high school kids. And one of the first questions that I always ask them is has anybody ever taught you how to lift? 95% of the time, the answer is no.
Right.
So me knowing that, and that was one of the reasons why as a kid, I didn't really like fitness, was because nobody ever really taught me how to do anything. So nobody ever taught me how to bench press. Nobody taught me how to back squat. Nobody taught me how to deadlift, or nobody taught me how to power clean. Nobody taught me how to do anything when I was coming up as a kid. So I was always, I won't say I was scared, but I was always worried to lift because I didn't know how to do anything, and I didn't want to do it wrong at the same time.
Right.
So with no one teaching me how to do things and no one being there to correct me, you just get pushed into this room and they say, okay, this is what you're doing. And I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah.
And me knowing that, I took that into account with what we do with CrossFit. So we have what we call an on-ramp program. So basically what we do is if you have somebody that's brand new, never done CrossFit before, knows absolutely nothing about it, we have an on-ramp session. Put you in 5 personal training sessions, one-on-one with one of my coaches, and they teach you the language of CrossFit. So when you get put into the classes, instead of looking at the board and wondering what that foreign language is up there, like you know what that stuff is. So you know what a power clean is. You know what, a kettlebell swing is. You know what a box jump is. You know what a hang snatch is. Like you learn all of these things. Like, so once you get into class, like, cause if you've never done a CrossFit before and you get put into a class and you've never done it, it's just a huge mind explosion.
Sure.
Like you're wondering, like, am I doing this right? What am I doing?
And you're staring at everybody else around you, and the
coach has to hover over you to make sure you're doing everything right. Well, when you do the on-ramp classes like that, it puts you one-on-one with that coach. So you learn, like I said, you won't master everything, but you learn everything. So when you do get put into class, like the transition's easier on you.
Sure.
Like it takes a long time to master any of this stuff in CrossFit. I've been doing it for like 13 years, and I still there's a few things that I don't have mastered, but I know how to do everything except for maybe like 1 or 2 things.
Right.
So if you do it about a year or so is when you start to figure out everything. But the easy transition is to know that, okay, whatever that workout is that's up there, like when you do on-ramp classes, like one of the first things that they teach you is that you're not relegated to do exactly what's up on that board.
Right.
Like we may not even let you have weight. We may just give you a PVC pipe.
Right.
We may just give you a light dumbbell. Like we're not going to put 500 pounds on the bar on your first day and say, hey, go ahead and deadlift this.
Yeah.
Like that's not how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, you want to kill somebody's hope and dreams right there on the spot. That's an easy way to do it.
That's the quickest way to do it.
So it's interesting you brought up the mastery part of it, because prior to you coming in here, I tried to do a little bit of research with my guests before I sit down, and one of the things that I was reading an article on that said that most CrossFitters don't really master anything that they're particularly doing. They're really good at a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
There's not one particular thing though that typically stands out. They just get really good at a lot of different things.
Yeah, and there's always with any sport or just in general, if I take basketball for instance, I was really good at a mid-range jump shot,
right?
But stepping behind a 3-point line, like I wasn't as good as I was at mid-range.
Yeah.
I could handle the ball out on the perimeter, but getting somebody and backing someone down in the post, I wasn't the best at it. And that's kind of like what CrossFit is. Like I'm really good at Olympic lifts. I'm really good at deadlifts. I'm really good at pretty much the bulk of things.
Right.
But the one thing that I'm not the best at is the gymnastic stuff. It just so happens that I'm like 6'5".
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I never, this is for instance, kicking upside down on a handstand.
Yeah.
Like a girl that when I was doing CrossFit, like I never wanted to kick upside down. She goes, hey, let's work on handstands. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like why do I want to kick up? You never kicked upside down? No, why would I ever want to kick upside down?
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out how people think that guys that, I'm 6'3", and how people think that that's a natural feeling. Most gymnasts, I mean, tell me the last time you seen a gymnast is 6 foot. So,
and that's one thing that you'll learn, about CrossFit too. When you're over 6 foot in CrossFit, you're a giant.
Yeah,
the guys and the girls that are like the best at it, they're like 5, like I'd say 5'7" is like really tall.
They're powerhouses.
But yeah, but just short, stocky,
compressed.
5 foot, 5, 3, 5'4" for like women, guys 5'5" to like maybe 5'7", 5'8", something like that. They're a lot shorter. So when you're 6'5", you're a giant, doing CrossFit, you're probably not going to. There's a few that are in there that are tall, but it's few, far, and in between.
Well, and the build is completely different between those guys. I mean, if I do it in the same method and I do it next to the guy that's 5'7",
it's going to take you a lot longer.
Yeah, and I'm going to look a lot more elongated, as far as my build, as opposed to these guys that are shorter in stature. These guys are just ripped and cut, and I'm going to be a little bit. It's kind of basketball player is a good example of that. You watch a basketball player that works out and gets in shape, for their season or whatever, elongated, still muscular and everything else, but they don't have the compactness that you see in some
really tall, really lean.
Yep.
That
absolutely.
Kind of yeah.
So that typically tends to be probably the first hurdle for people, I would think, that are going into CrossFit. Second hurdle is injury. Yeah. People who, if you know anybody that's done CrossFit for a long period of time, they tend to hear people that get injured.
Yeah.
And so I'll tie this back in. Well, before I touch on injury, I'll touch on the other side of it, and we'll go to number 3 and come back to number 2. So number 3 is cost. I mean, that's people who look at, I can go over to Planet Fitness over here and drop $20 a month, and I'm going to be able to use their gym and everything else. And then they look at a CrossFit and they're going, oh, wait a minute. Why is this so much? And before we sat down, we were kind of talking about, the amount of investment that you make as a gym owner owning a CrossFit place back into your coaches to ensure that they're trained well, that they get the levels of certification that they, not only that they need, but maybe that they want. I mean, they get to one certification level and then their goal is to try and push to the next certification level. This is getting placed really on your shoulders in most cases. And so these guys are working for you underneath your name in the gym. And you want those guys to be the best qualified, best certified that they can be, so that also not only are they growing their abilities, they're growing the ability for you inside the gym to also kind of take a little bit of a step back and have these guys ensure that people aren't getting injured. Right. So you're investing back into the people that these folks are really paying for on the front side with those memberships to invest in. Yeah. So, while injury in that type of a workout environment is going to be common in a lot of cases, most of those injuries are preventable.
Yeah, and I would say, so a prime example, using myself again, the majority of my injuries happened before I started doing CrossFit. So the bad ankles, the bad knees, the bad back, the bad shoulders, that all happened to me prior to doing CrossFit. Now, did CrossFit kind of make those things worse initially? Yes, it did. But
amplified it.
But that was on me. Sure. And most of the injuries that happened like that, we always ask, members, new people that come through the gym, like, do you have any injuries that I need to know about? Right. Which is always a question, and say, well, I had this old injury from, high school, bad back, or, bad knee, or I had back surgery, that kind of thing. Most of my injuries, like I said, were before I did CrossFit. Now, what I did learn in CrossFit was that my mobility and my flexibility was horrible. So one of the things that I have had to work on for now going on like 10 years that I've worked on was making sure I have, mobile hips, making sure I have flexibility within my ankles, making sure my shoulders are strong. So when I do want to push something over my head, like my shoulders can take that load over time. Right. So that's one of the big portions about, with CrossFit that, gets kind of left behind. And one of my favorite things to do, and I've worked really closely with a bunch of chiropractors in town. Like we were talking about Brian Watts earlier. Brian's a physical therapist, but I've worked really closely with a bunch of chiropractors in town, and I've trained a bunch of chiropractors in town. So although I didn't go to school, for that stuff over the human body, like I'm a sponge. Like I always ask questions and I want to learn about the human body, because I have injuries myself, and I know if I have these injuries, I know for sure there's other people that have these injuries. Sure. So when it comes to rehab for your ankles, rehab for the knees, rehab for the hips, whether muscular injuries, whether it's hamstring, whether it's quad, that kind of stuff. Shoulders, one of my favorite things. Shoulders, wrists, all of that. I learned from those chiropractors these little methods. And there's another gentleman, his name's Kelly Starrett, who was really big in the CrossFit world, who was also a doctor of physical therapy, who just kind of revolutionized mobility within the CrossFit world. And pretty much anything that you see now that's mobility was like from him. And he's wrote 2 like brilliant books over all of this stuff also, that are out there in the world. It's called Supple Leopard. That's what, so you can think about that
Supple
one.
Leopard?
Supple Leopard, yes.
Okay.
The Supple Leopard. Kelly Starrett, he's a doctor of physical therapy. But working on my injuries, like I know that my injuries are probably always going to be there and be present, but I know that there's daily things that I can do to help them. And that's where most people don't do that. Like most people go to a physical therapist, so they go to a doctor and they go through their physical therapy. And then as soon as they're done with physical therapy, they stop doing it. Well, what happens from there is that eventually down the line, like if you're not doing anything for it, it's going to come back at some point in time,
sure.
If you don't do anything for it, So, learning that and learning about your body, learning what your body can take and what your body can't take, and doing things that help prevent injury rather than just ignoring it and hoping that it'll go away. Because I know I learned that, like when I turned about 25, you get an injury and you're like, man, that injury ain't going away like as fast as it used to when I was like 18, 19, you know, and then you get 30 and then they really don't go away. They just kind of linger around.
Well, and it's that scary thought for, when to that point, when you're younger, your body rebounds quickly, and even so, a little pull or a little, hiccup or something like that, and you're a day or two and you're back and good. As you get older, then you got to protect your body a little bit more. You got to know where your balance is. You got to know, and that's really probably a lot of the challenges is doing something new like CrossFit. You're constantly pushing for results and for personal records and gains and things like that. But then it's also the idea of knowing where the line is. And that's really, I think, where your coaches probably come into play. Your coaches, what's an average class? What do you think your average head count is? I know you got COVID and post-COVID.
Prior to COVID, the largest classes we would have, the afternoon class, it'd be about 30 people.
That's a lot.
In there. Now we have it, obviously COVID times, we have it limited to 15
right
now.
So one coach?
One coach. One coach.
So that one coach obviously is doing this and getting trained and getting their certification so that they can pay attention. Somebody's doing something wrong. It may not just necessarily be the idea of let me correct your form here, but let's also drop your weight, or let's
that's ego. Ego is what gets a lot of people injured.
Listen, the biggest ego I've ever had just crushed, and I mean crushed in a group class, was watching a girl next to me, 5'2", throwing around some weight. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't be at that weight. I got to be at least another 20, 30 pounds above that. And then picking that up, knowing that I've obviously bit off more than I can chew, but I'm not going back and re-racking this weight.
Every guy that does CrossFit can tell you that these women that do CrossFit are just phenomenal.
They're animals.
Yeah. And part of it too is that women's pain tolerance is a lot higher than ours is too. So, a woman can be in a pain cave for a long time and be just fine, where, me, if I get into the pain cave for a little bit, I'm probably going to come out of that pain cave after a little while. But like I said, I think every guy that has done CrossFit can tell you a story of being next to a woman that's probably like 5'5", 5'6", something like that, and has the RX weight on the bar, and they're like, man, I'm going to do RX weight too, and I'm going to beat her, and you get crushed. That's, you have to learn. And I had to learn. I learned this too when I started off too. And like I said, every guy has a story. Like you need to dial it back a little bit on the weight, and just know that the majority of the time these women are going to beat you.
Well, it also didn't help that the lady that's next to me working out is a Marine.
Yeah, there you go.
And there you go. Shout out to Hannah Romer if you're listening out there. And even for her to be next to me, because we worked out in class every day when we were doing this stuff, and I would go and get some weight, and she would look at me and go, "Really? That's what you're going to grab today?" So there's definitely an ego deal that goes on there, and that can be spurred by competitive nature as well too, because we were always competitive with each other, but also being able to listen to your body and identify those things that are happening in your body. But your coaches really are there to also, from outside in, kind of looking at, okay, is the form correct? Is your form incorrect because you're tired?
Yeah.
Is your form incorrect because you've got more weight than you really probably should be handling? Should we move you back down and get your form correct first? and then we'll start layering on. And then again, so these are coaches that aren't just your run of the mill personal trainer coaches. They're just running in. Yeah. They're getting specifically certified for the type of class that you guys are teaching out there at CrossFit.
Yeah, and we've always, and one of the things, you know, like I said, you talk about coaches, you know, when you own a business, like you want someone that's around and that's there and that's coaching and that's getting experience. And the big part of that, especially when you're teaching CrossFit, is being around, you know, being around the people that work out at that gym on a regular basis. So you see, and that's one of the, you know, the huge things that I love about, you know, myself being in CrossFit for so long, is that CrossFit is like a very data driven, you know, fitness program. So like I have all of this data on all these people that I've watched, you know, over years, over a decade plus of like just movement, you know, of doing CrossFit, and you know what it should look like. Well, okay, why doesn't it look like this? Okay, well, it doesn't look like this. You know, is it an ankle flexibility thing? Okay, well, you know, maybe is it her knee bugging her today, or okay, is her back still sore? You know, or is she tired? You know, because in CrossFit we always push people to exhaustion, and you know, one of the things I always tell people is that I always want the first rep to look exactly like the last rep. You know, that's the goal. Yeah. You know, when we're gonna push you to exhaustion, but that first rep, we want it to look like the last rep. And does it always happen? No, it doesn't. But if you're moving properly and you have the movement down and you've done it over time, and you've done it and you've done it and you've done it, that first rep, it may not look exactly like the last rep, but it's fairly close to what that first rep looks like. And that's how you help kind of how to prevent injury, and, you know, people learning where their threshold is. And, you know, if you let your ego get in the way, you put too much weight on there, then that's gonna be a caveat in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I started discovering, like, I would walk into a class and my body could tell me when I walked in, like, today's gonna be a little bit lighter weight day, you know, or I'd walk in and go, man, I feel pretty good today, so I think let's push today and see what I can get done.
And I always tell people too, you know, we all, you know, you spend 1 hour in the gym, there's 23 other hours outside of the gym. What you do outside of the gym is gonna always affect what happens within that hour, the hour that you're in the gym. So when you come in the gym, we don't expect you to always be 100%. You know, there's some days where, you know, your kids kept you up all night, you know, or you were sick, you know, and you didn't get sleep, like, you know, slept like crap, you know. So you come in and you might be 70% that day. Okay, well, you're 70% that day, give me 70% of what you have. Right. You know, that's all we ask for. If you come in on a Monday and you're 100%, give me 100% of what you got, you know. But if not, you're 85% or whatever, you're 50%. Okay, let's dial it back. Let's do what we can today. You know, you're not going to come into the gym every day and get a brand new PR. You know, you're not going to break a record every day that you're in the gym. Some days you just don't have it. And those are the days where you have to listen to your body. Because if you don't listen to your body, it's going to make you listen to it. And usually when it makes you listen to it, that means you're going to have to take some time off and you're out injured for a while. Yeah,
and the consistency of running these classes, having the same coaches in those classes, same people around them for the accountability purpose, really from two levels. From the accountability from people who are working around you, you know, who, if you skip a class or whatever, they're, hey, man, where were you? You know, because they're used to you being there. And then the accountability from that coach of going, hey, look, Lynn, looks like you, did you have a rough weekend, or, you know, kind of what's going on there? But that accountability also is what a lot of people need in that gym. They don't need someone who can just, you know, oversee everything. They need that extra push as well, too. Because you don't go, listen, how many people do you think actually go to a gym to maintain something? Most of them are starting in a hole somewhere, and they're trying to work themselves out of that. And then it's a constant stepping process. Man, I didn't think I could get to here, but now that I'm here, can I get to here? Yeah. And so your coaches kind of push back and challenge against that as well too. So you talked about, you know, knowing your body and everything else. So structural wise, as guys come into class, and again, we were talking about this before we went on air here, that, you know, the number one killer to somebody's workout program is their nutrition.
Oh yeah, that's always going to be the big one. I do what I do because I love food.
Right. So, yeah. And I try to give myself some more calories to eat there. Yeah, I can understand that.
And that's what most people will tell you. Like, I love food. You know, I'm a fat kid. I just, you know, anything that's sweet, you know, food, give me some, you know, some good old chips and queso. You know, now I'm getting a little bit older, so all I drink is wine, you know, so give me a couple glasses of wine, you know, and I love food. So that's why I do what I do. Right. So, but you can't, there's points in time, and I tell people I will eat when I get to a point, I will eat whatever I want to when I want to. Like I have no shame about it. You know, I might do it for a week. I might do it for, 3 months. Quarantine, for example, I ate everything that I wanted to for quarantine with it, and I didn't care, and after we got out of quarantine for a little while, then I was like, okay, I need to get my life together and, start dial it back a little bit and get everything back together. But you will never be able to outrun bad nutrition. Never. This doesn't work.
Well, what's amazing is you don't have to go very long on bad nutrition. You can go a couple of days on bad nutrition and you'll feel it at the next workout. You're like, man, whether it was that one extra little drink or couple extra little drinks or that, Mexican food that I probably would have passed on that I, been thinking about. But yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'll go in and get a workout in. I'll work out for an hour and I do a high intensity cardio workout where, at the end of the class, I'm burning somewhere between 850 and 1,000 calories. Yeah. And for whatever magical reason in my head, I'm like, dude, that Bluebell ice cream is going to taste really good tonight. Yeah. So I'm almost working towards the treat, okay, well, if I go in, I won't feel as guilty eating that tonight. But you see these guys, I mean, my perception outside in, my perception of CrossFit guys that do it, that are hardcore, do it all the time. A lot of those guys, I mean, their nutrition is spot on. Yeah, and I mean, they're the chicken and rice guys. Yeah. I mean, they're not going real far overboard. They probably have their indulging, but it's not. They're not racking a bunch of days together. And these guys, so I want to be the guy that's got six pack and just ripped body and everything else is not going to happen with my Bluebell ice cream sitting in there. And it's still not going to happen even if I'm burning that 1,000 calories and thinking, okay, well, I'm offsetting it over here.
And it's really being in that good a shape, like it's really fickle. Like a lot, some of it has to do with genetics, obviously. Yes. Yeah. Some of it has to do with genetics, but it's really hard on the body for you to eat that way, like over and over and over and over again. Because what typically happens with most people is that they get into this nutrition plan and they have to eat a certain way for an extended period of time. And when it comes time to like eat, something outside of that, you gorge yourself on something else.
Or when quarantine comes.
Or quarantine comes and you just gorge yourself, for an extended period of time. And I know that about myself also. So I know that, when I get to a certain point, like about once a week is what I try to give myself, one bad meal or just, something that I want that's not within the realm of what I'm supposed to be eating, and that helps kind of keep me sane. Because to
curb that, so that when you do sit down in front of something, you don't go hog wild.
Yeah. So, I'm looking forward to, a Friday or a Saturday where, I'm going to eat whatever I want to and not just eat, chicken and rice, or, I'm not drinking, smoothies all day, or like trying to cleanse, like that kind of stuff, because you can cleanse, you can eat chicken and rice, but you have to figure out something that's sustainable for you. Yeah. And everybody's different in terms of like what they can sustain eating on a regular basis. Like I know I can't eat chicken and rice every day. Right. Like it doesn't happen to me. Yeah. So, I mix in things, that kind of follow the guidelines of what I'm doing, but it's also sustainable for what I'm doing over time. And that's where most people, I think, kind of get themselves in trouble or kind of fail, because it's, you set a goal for, what you want to get to, and you're so stuck on that goal that, if it doesn't come, then it's like, oh man, I failed.
Yeah. Well, and so again, if I show up on your doorstep and I do these workouts 5 days a week and I don't change my eating styles, I'm going to see some changes, right? Just simply because I'm doing more exercise than I normally would. But there's going to be a point that I can't pass. Yeah, you hit. Or if I've got a goal of being this, then I got to ensure that all those things kind of fall into place to match up with that. And then, so one of the things that I noticed, you guys do nutritional services as well too, like when people come to you. So y'all offer that up to folks as well, where they can, I'm assuming food logs, things like that, so that your specialists have the ability to look from outside in, to look in and go, okay, here's some of the things that, these are good for you. These aren't so good for you. These are good for you for pre-workout, post-workout. They can kind of identify some of those things and feed that back into some of your clients.
And that was kind of the thing again, like I said earlier, talking about, nobody ever taught me how to work out. It was kind of the same thing with food. Nobody ever taught me how to eat. nobody, I never.
Well, they taught you how to eat.
They taught you how to eat, but they didn't
teach you how to eat the right things.
They didn't teach you how to eat the right things, So, I was, when I first started working out, I was thinking eating Subway every day was good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And they'll come to find out like, oh man, that's a whole lot of carbs on the intake there. Yeah. Oh, that's not enough protein. So, you learn those things over time. And like I said, I've always been kind of a sponge, so I've had friends that were nutritionists, so I could always kind of ask questions on, okay, what should I do with this? Or, how should I eat? When should I eat this? And there's so many different, meal plans and programs out there now that we all have at our hands, access wise.
Yeah. The information age of bringing this literally to your doorstep. I mean, it can be in your hands in a quick hurry, free up to subscription based plans and things like that. But also the idea of having somebody, again, if I'm talking to somebody about my nutrition, sometimes it's a lot easier. I mean, I can see it on a phone and go, man, that looks pretty good, and that looks really good. And anybody that goes onto Pinterest to look up healthy recipes or whatever, they can see all these things and find that stuff on there. But it's still while you can go home and you can cook all these nutritional things, it's still a lifestyle change. I mean, it's still the idea of going, okay, well, 1 good, 2 good, 3 good meals a week is still not really where you got to be at, depending on what your goals are here. So you talked about quarantine, and that's going to lead us into our next subject, which is COVID, right? Yeah. So again, we kind of sat down on here, and like I said, my wife works in the gym industry. And you guys were the first ones to get shut down. I mean, I remember when we came back, we
actually closed down 2 weeks prior to the actual shutdown.
Right. To the mandated from state.
Yeah, we closed down 2 weeks prior to that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the gyms and bars were the ones that really got the targets placed on them quickly. And it was this deal of when there's well more known about the virus today. Still not a lot, but well more known about it today than back then. And right out of the gate, it was, these have got to be the problems. Bars. People are gathering together, and they're working out, they're sweating, they're doing all this other stuff. So this comes to your doorstep. You've made the decision now. Well, let me rephrase that. You didn't make the decision. Yeah. The decision pretty much forced it. I mean, while it was 2 weeks beforehand, it was going to be forced either way. And so you now have to shutter the doors down. Give me your thought process walking through this.
Man, I think it was just for a lot of people, it was really just kind of like worry and kind of scary time. It still is. Sure. But initially, like just because there was so much unknown about it all, I was, and I remember when this happened. So I remember the NCAA tournament was right around the corner. Yeah. And I'm a college basketball fan. When I saw the NCAA tournament shut down, I was like, we're done.
This is real.
Yeah, this is real. Yeah. Because that's a $1 billion industry. So like when that happened, like I knew it was just a formality that we were gonna shut down. So I had already kind of, prepared myself for it. So I wasn't, completely kind of taken back for it. It was almost kind of weird. Like I actually enjoyed the quarantine. A little bit because doing what I've done for so long, like I've never sat still. I used to work 5 a.m. to like 8 or 9 p.m. like on a regular basis. So, for 14, 15 years, you don't sit still. Sure. Like, even at night, I get off of work, like, the brain is still going. I'm still working. I'm still doing stuff. I get up in the morning, I'm working. Like there's so much hustle and bustle. But I don't know how it was for other people, but for me, like I did enjoy the actual like pause of life. Now, granted, with the pause of life came the pause of my business and my livelihood also. So that was a scary part, wondering, when we were going to be able to open back up and everybody having questions and, us not having answers and, waiting for gyms to open back up and gyms not opening back up, and everything opening back up quickly, but other stuff, staying closed. So, I was worried, but one thing that I have been blessed with is my business partner. We're yin and yang, like we're completely different, but we're very like-minded at the same time. He's very anal retentive about a lot of things. So, when we did open back up, or, COVID kind of came around the corner, like he already had an idea of like how he wanted to do everything. And it actually like flowed, pretty well with us coming back into the gym.
How long were y'all down?
I want to say it was right at 3 or right at how long was the shutdown?
About 3 months.
We were down for 4 months.
4 months.
We were down for 4 months. Yeah.
So, and we're talking 4 months, nothing coming in.
Yeah. 4 months.
So.
Well, we actually did have income coming in.
Okay.
Because Zoom has become such a big thing.
That's where I was fixing to ask. Did y'all go virtual?
We went virtual, so we were able to teach Zoom classes. For the months that we were actually shut down, and it worked well, and it did its job. But so much of what we do is just so hands on.
Sure.
That it's hard to teach people. And then, when you do CrossFit, it requires certain equipment. And we loaned out a lot of equipment. We loaned out a lot of our dumbbells. We loaned out a lot of our kettlebells.
Because you couldn't find a dumbbell anywhere in town.
Yeah, med ball, like anything that was like that wasn't super large. Yeah. Like we loaned out to everybody, like no charge, like this. We'll loan this stuff out. So people had equipment, but it's still not the same as like I said, it's so much camaraderie, doing CrossFit, seeing the people that you see every day, which, it happened in all aspects of life. You don't get to, your kids don't get to see their friends, right. You don't get to see people, on a regular basis because everybody's kind of stuck in the house. You get to see them across from a screen, but, it's not the same.
Yeah.
So it worked well for what it was, but it just wasn't the same.
Sure.
At all.
So, let's walk forward 4 months, and you're now at the point that you're getting ready to start reopening. You said Brian was kind of anal retentive in the way that everything was kind of opening back up and how you guys were doing that. And so obviously a lot of stuff had to change with how you handled, not just the fact that you can't let back in the full group of people that would normally be working. You're now at, I'm assuming, like 50% or whatever. But things have to be a lot more front and centered when you're talking about sanitation and the purpose of keeping your gym clean while people are working out in there. So, walk me to that point. You guys are now open, and what does it look like for you guys? Or did y'all start out with just a few classes and then kind of slowly worked your way back up?
Yeah, we came back in, I won't say full bore, but we moved some of the class times around and got rid of one of the classes that we kind of had sprinkled in there. The main one that we had to unfortunately get rid of was the 9:30 class, which is like our women's only class, and that was where we always had the childcare.
Right. But
our childcare room is a 12 by 12 room, so it was impossible.
Yeah. So that was still shut down.
Yeah. So that was impossible to do. But we were lucky. We have about 5,000 square feet worth of space in there. And even us, like the 50%, the 25, the 50%, the 75%, like that doesn't really do us anything to us. Like ours was more of like the 6 feet of distance,
right.
Apart. So like we have 5,000 square feet worth of space, but everybody got their own box that was spaced. Like we made it set to where like we took the 3 biggest things that we have in our gym, which is a rower, a box, and a barbell. And we made the boxes big enough to fit all 3 of those things in, with them having enough space to move around in that box, but still having 6 feet of distance in between it.
Yeah.
So for what we had initially, it ended up being 12 spots that we could have.
Now saying that number, you're talking 5,000 square foot space or whatever, and saying that number of 12 people within there, that's a lot of space.
Yeah.
For each individual,
right?
To ensure that you're keeping the not just the 6 foot between tape box here and tape box here, but I mean obviously there's well more space than that in between each individual.
Yeah, there's well more space like that in between individual, but like I said, we wanted, if we were going to do it, and that was one of the things that we got a lot of love for initially, but when we closed down 2 weeks before everybody else was, everybody appreciated us making a decision to shut down a couple of weeks early, right? To keep everybody safe, because
you don't want your name attached to an outbreak.
Yeah,
you don't want your name, you don't want your business attached to it. You don't want to put any of your members and clients at risk.
And that's what we didn't want to do. So that's why initially we made that decision to close down early. And that's why when we came back, we set everything to where everybody had their own space. And it was almost kind of like the same thing I kind of said again, kind of a blessing in disguise, where like we had a system that we use that, we track everybody's workouts in, and everybody can like register for classes. Well, nobody was actually registering for classes, but with COVID now, like everybody has to register for a class. Right. So we know exactly who was in that class. So if something does happen, say, somebody in that class has COVID.
Yeah.
Okay, we had these 12 people that were in this class. We know what coach was there. So we need to tell these 12 people, that were in this class, hey, somebody in this class has COVID, pay attention to yourself for, the next 5 to 7 days. If you have any symptoms, obviously don't come in, go get checked. You know, when the coach that's in that class, okay, you stay out of the gym for the next, 4 or 5 days, when we'll plug somebody else in and then kind of go from there, So it ended up being a little bit of a blessing in disguise for us to kind of work with that. And we've always actually, in terms of cleaning the gym, we've always been to sanitize the gym. Like Lysol wipes are a thing in our gym. After we finish every class, Lysol wipes would go out like hotcakes. Everybody's wiping down everything. Everybody's putting everything up, right. Clean up after class. But now, a quick shout out to ProStar Industries for giving us the stuff that we use now to clean everything off. But basically, it kills COVID within 3 minutes of contact with it, and then you leave it on there for 10 minutes, and it kills everything.
Yeah.
So that's what we use to wipe down everything now. And that's from the barbells to the rig, where we do pull-ups, to the bikes, to the rowers. Everything gets sprayed down with that. Even in our industrial floor scrubber, when we scrub the floors, that's what we use in it too as well to kill everything.
Yeah, they're good folks over there.
Yeah.
So doors get open back up. I mean, a lot of hesitancy from some of your people to come back.
There was some hesitancy from some people. Some people stayed out for about another, 2, maybe 3 weeks, maybe even a month. Some people stayed out. But I think once everybody saw how we were operating our classes, how careful we were about, bringing everybody in. And then after, I'd say about maybe a month or two, we had a little bit more space that we had turf on.
Yeah.
But we went and bought more stall mats, and we added 3 more spots. So now we have it up to 15.
Yeah.
And people still have 6 feet of space in between on that side also.
Well, yeah, because I think the first place for most people who were looking to go back to the gym, even though they knew that would eventually be another part that they would bring back into their lives, the idea of, we're going to be going full bore over here, and everybody's breathing everything out of their lungs that they can at the end of a deal, and what's that going to look like, and how is everybody going to be doing this together? And again, that comfortability for folks is going to be different on different levels. Some people are probably, as soon as you're probably at the door, they're ready to get in there. And then you got some that are like, listen, man, I'm going to wait it out and kind of see what's going to happen. Or I've got kids and I want to make sure that, I'm doing the best thing for them. Or I've got elderly parents and I don't want to bring it back home to them if something happens. I mean, all of those things are kind of the unknown. So let's talk about today versus shutdown. Yeah. I mean, so you're still reduced classes?
Yeah, we're still at reduced classes. I want a super big shout out to everybody at Sawed-Off CrossFit for being, for working with us on all this. I mean, it's not super inconvenient, but I mean, it's not that normal that everybody wants,
You still got to ask them to.
Yeah.
I know you were used to this. We just need this until otherwise.
Until everything gets. But they know now. You come in, you have your mask on,
get to your station,
get your temperature checked, wash your hands, put hand sanitizer on. Go to your spot. You can take your mask off once you get to your spot. Yep. And then then everything is kosher.
Work out, put it back on.
Work out after you work out. If you finish your workout, put it back on. Okay, and then you're good to go. And what we did too was, because like I said, we kind of changed our classes around. Our early morning classes already had about 30 minutes of time in between, so it was a good segue for people to get in, finish their workout, and then they leave, and then the next class comes in. And then what we did in the afternoon time was, because it was in the afternoon, it was like 4:30, 5:30, 6:30 with like no time in between.
Right.
So we had to move the 4:30 class to 3:30. We had to move the 5:30 class to 5:15, and then we moved the 6:30. We kept the 6:30 as it was. So there's a little bit of segue in between.
Yeah.
So
give yourself some time.
Yeah. There's not everybody on top of each other as they come in and out. But it's been an adjustment. But it's the new normal, just like it is for everybody else. I mean, I know
you're going to listen to a bunch of these podcasts, and you're going to hear me talk about how much I hate that word.
Yeah,
but
I know.
I mean, but it is the idea that for folks who want to do it, it's something that if you want to do it, man, you just kind of have to go with it. It's not like Terrance is over there going, look, we're going to try and make this as super inconvenient as we can. It's look, we're going to do the best with what we have, what we know, and what we're being told needs to happen. Because at the same point, like I said, you don't want there to be, I mean, look, not even dealing with the business. How many in the last 2 months, how many sororities and fraternities have made the news because there's an outbreak, right?
Yeah.
You don't want your business to be front center page of the Eagle or on KBTX where people are calling you out going, hey, there was an outbreak out at Sawed-Off. I mean, you don't want that to be a headline news story anywhere in town. And so you're going to default on the side of caution. And as a business owner, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for your people.
And we make those changes like that. You make those changes for your business, and it's not even for yourself. Like, it's to protect the people that are coming to your business, you know, to protect them, you know, I don't want to say from themselves, but it almost is kind of, you know, because, you know, some people will be just fine with, you know, okay, let's open the gym back up and we're just going to go back to normal.
Yeah.
You know, some people will be just fine with that. And then, like you said, you know, you make the front page of the newspaper for having an outbreak at the gym. And that's not what we wanted.
Well, that could be a business killer. I mean, that could be a do or die deal that you just don't even open back up again. So your 50% class. So is it a safe assumption that revenue today versus where you are at or less than?
Man, we grew.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. Like it was crazy. Like,
but that says a lot for your business and how, in the respect of what was in your business prior to the shutdown, and also in the word of mouth that gets out from people who are working out there, because a lot of CrossFit as well isn't as much advertising as, like, you know, you're throwing flyers on everything and all that. It's really a lot of word of mouth. Yeah. People bringing that friend in to work out with them.
CrossFit, and that's been the one thing, and that's, you know, like when we were talking earlier about, you know, training, like I learned the kind of the do's and don'ts. Like, you can only advertise so much for like gyms. Like, a lot of people that go to gyms they watch TV, but a commercial or radio, you know, doesn't really do a ton, you know. Right. Like, if you have,
not in today's environment.
Yeah, if you have 150 members and those members are happy, then you have 150 people talking about your business. Right. So that's just advertisement. It's something that's free.
Yeah, we used to say all the time when I was in Walmart, the average person will come into contact on average with about 10 people that are decent friends, anywhere from really close friends to decent friends. And they're going to talk about their experience with those 10 people. Yeah. So when there's 150 people, you're really talking about a reach between those guys of another 1,500 out.
Exactly.
You lure in a few of those, that stretch goes further. So it's more of a natural transition for people that are in just testing it, trying it out. And again, you're building that based on what they see day in and day out.
Yeah. And we have a bunch of, you know, business owners, young professionals, A&M employees, nurses, firefighters. You know, we have a lot of those within our business. So, you know, that's just, you know, more people that are talking. And we have students too as well. We have some great kids that come to our gym, great kids. But that's all them, you know, loving what we're doing and seeing what we're doing and telling their friends, like, hey, come try the gym out. Come try the gym out, you know.
So 2 questions. See, one, knowing what you know now, we rewind all the way back into March, and you got to go through this whole deal again. What would you have done different?
Man, I honestly can't say that I would have done anything different. You know, I really don't think that there's anything that we could have done differently than what we did. I mean, I think, you know, I can't, you know, speak for Brian, but, you know, I think we bent over backwards, man, to try to make all of this stuff, you know, work and be safe for everybody. I mean, granted, you know, not everybody's always going to be happy with the decisions that you make, you know, in terms of, you know, your business, but that's just a part of it. You learn that as you're kind of going along doing it. But, you know, like I said just a second ago, I think every decision that we made, like, it wasn't for us, it was for the safety of all the people that we have come through that gym on a regular basis.
I think that CrossFit community really was kind of the thing that kind of melded together in that process, where, because I mean, I can tell you, my wife works for Golds, and I mean, you get to this point and people's loyalty in a Gold's gym and a Planet Fitness and all these other, it runs about that big, you know, and it's sitting there going, hey man, I'll go somewhere else. You know, if you guys aren't, I'll go somewhere else. Do you feel like that community and that cohesiveness of what you're building there in your business is really kind of what stabilized a lot of that for people's return and people being a little more patient as you're working through the process?
Without a shadow of a doubt. I've been blessed while I've been doing this. I've made some super good relationships with a lot of people that are still with me. We've been through, you know, tons of things. You know, I'm obviously not gonna name any names, but we've been through family deaths, you know, miscarriages, you know, you name it. You know, a lot of the people that come to my gym, we've been through a lot together. but nobody's ever been through a pandemic together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we already had a super close-knit relationship, and us sticking together sticking together as a family and taking this, head on, I think that has made all of us, kind of come together, to make the gym, better, and want the gym to be better and want the gym to continue to grow, in the manner that it has, and like I said, I want to say, if I just pick a number, I'll probably say off the top of my head, we probably lost about an eighth of the people that we had in the gym, and we've probably gotten all of them back. Not the exact same people, but we've had more people come through the gym, in that time, and it's like I wouldn't change anything, man.
Yeah, I mean 12%. That's not a huge number in the big mix of everything. When you're talking about industries that are down over 50%, and to lose 12% out of that, really, again, that's a pretty phenomenal number in what you're building up there. You're always going to lose some. I mean, there's no way you're going to be closed that long, and people aren't. I think the other part of that is during the pandemic, people were looking at that and going, what can I kind of cut out of my life here? Because maybe they don't have income coming in, and this is expendable and this is expendable.
And we had people do that. I mean, and at that point, it's kind of, what do you say to that? Can't,
I don't have a job paying me anything right now, Terrance. I've got to cut what I can cut.
And it's like, we put people's stuff on hold, or we cancel people's stuff. There's no, we don't even have cancellation fees as it is.
Right.
But with all of this, nobody, like I said, nobody last year could have predicted that we were going to be going through a pandemic. So this is not a normal time. So you almost can't do things. You can operate your business as you normally would, but you can't do everything the normal way that you want to. We had to be, more flexible, with, time frames of, people coming into the gym, people coming in a little late. Like we've all had to adjust, and adapt to some point with everything that's gone on, when people was like, hey, I don't have a job. Okay, you're good. I'll take care of it.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. If you need anything, let us know, and you got my number, you got my email address, give me a holler, let me know if we can do something.
So harder question number 2 here, because I asked you number 1, and that one was kind of one of those, you had to dig back a little bit. So here's harder question number 2. Again, knowing what you know now, what do you feel local representatives and things could have done to help you better with your business through this process?
I know there was, a few like grants and some other things that were like kind of out and about to help businesses that you could apply for. Yeah. I didn't hear anything about those. Luckily, like I said, I'm blessed to have people around me that heard about them and and kind of referred them to us. Now, obviously, the PPP, that was well known. Everybody knew about that.
Yeah, but so PPP was the thing that was at the forefront for most business owners. But then a lot of business owners didn't know about EIDL loans.
Yep, there you go.
A long-term 30-year loan, low interest rate, lower than you can get your house in most cases. I mean, and obviously, the ability to be able to qualify for a significant amount of money to prop your business up while you're going through all these things. The grants from the city, like you had talked about. And those were grants that, again, you applied for it. They basically looked at what it was that you were submitting for and approved, disapproved. Yeah. And it could be up to a certain amount of money. I mean, but you're right. I mean, I think, we took advantage of all 3 things as a business that were out there, but it was also the idea of, man, just the forefront knowledge of that, as like you said, I heard about it through people who were connected as opposed to, the reach back. And I know it's difficult for those people in those leadership roles for the city to be able to get to every business. Yeah. And you're
saying they're impossible.
Yeah. But, and again, armchair quarterbacking, it's pretty easy to do today, right? I mean, it's easy for us to sit back and say that, but this isn't to say that this couldn't somewhere be in the future again. Yeah. And so the communication piece is definitely one of those things I could definitely tell you I'd agree with you on as far as just, a little bit more knowledge. I think the other part for us was knowing what was going to happen with our folks.
Yeah.
Because we, for the little bit of information that we had, which wasn't much, to be able to sit down and have to walk through our folks in the process of furloughing while we were closing down, and then how they'd come back and how we would bring them back. And really, in our business, the thing that was great for us was we furloughed, we got all the way down. We started at like 43 people, and then we furloughed down to 5. Jeez. And so we're running it and those 5 include 3 of us owners.
Yeah.
So we're literally doing as bare bone as we can just to try and get the stuff in for people who already had stuff in the pipeline for us. And then bringing those folks back, and how we could bring them back, and how we could afford to bring them back. And then, we were really blessed. We brought everybody back with the exception of one, and the one that decided not to come back decided to stay home for schooling their children, which again, kind of like you're saying earlier, you can't fault somebody for wanting to do that. But, it's one of those deals where nobody kind of knows what's going on. But unfortunately, being a small business owner, you're at the tail end of that stick. And there's a lot of conversation between small business owners right now going on in our community about the priorities that we want to see in College Station, and that we want to see in Bryan, and what we're doing to try and protect those. And gyms are obviously one of them, man, because you're already in an industry where the success rate of a gym, especially a small gym going out with, doesn't have the big backing, corporate backing. You're kind of like a restaurant, man. You're stepping out there, taking a huge leap of faith, and entrusting that your business knowledge, your skill set, your partner's business knowledge and skill set are going to be able to carry y'all forward for a long-term investment. And then you go through this process of going through a shutdown, and now all of a sudden you're going, okay. The one thing I think that we talked about as business owners, we said that it made us better businessmen.
Agreed, 100%.
That 100%. If we had to go through it again, would we do some things different? Yeah, there were probably some things we'd do different. But there were things that we did we were really proud of in the way that we handled the way we did some things, especially compared to what we heard from some competitors and things like that, the way that they handled things. So we were really proud in being able to execute based on what we knew. But I think the identity of bouncing back as a community is tied back into these small businesses. Yeah. It's not tied back into the corporate businesses here in town.
And this is such a small, granted the town is getting bigger, but this is still just a small, good old boy, good old girl town. Like it just really is. And everybody knows, if you're from this town, somebody in some way, shape or form through somebody else,
sure.
And that's one of the, the things that was, kind of, like I said, kind of scary for me, my business is, we're doing good. Like I said, I can't complain about anything that is going on, in terms of, us, closing down and then us opening back up. Thank God for, like I said, the people that we have that stuck with us through all this, but, you see all these local businesses that are having to close down, and it's just.
Well, they're reaching out to the community. Please come and shop from us. Please come and buy food from us.
What was it? Pie in the Sky.
Yeah.
In town.
There was a lot of small businesses that bared their souls here over these last few months to try and do every effort they possibly could to save their business. Yeah. And collectively as a community, our community is probably one of the most tight knit communities that I've lived in. But the reality of it is when you are looking around the community, I know Tap and I kind of talked about this a little bit with Another Broken Egg. If you drove past Tap's place, you'd think, oh man, the restaurant businesses are doing great. Yeah. Well, that restaurant's doing great, but there's still a lot that are struggling. And the same thing for these gyms. You've got some gyms that didn't make it. You've got some gyms that, again, they're just kind of holding on and kind of trying to piece it together and hold on to it as long as they can. But we got to rely on the people in the community to, number one, feel confident that the small business owners are doing everything they can to make the return of those customers the safest as possible. And then also making sure that we understand we have a commitment to the community because they're the ones that are going to ride us forward or drive us into the ground. Yeah. And so we've really got to ensure that as a community, the small businesses really become the foundation for what College Station and Bryan is. And the big corporations and everything else, those guys are going to be okay.
They'll be just fine.
I didn't see anybody struggling to get into a Walmart or an H-E-B or any of those guys.
Like, they'll be fine.
Right. Yeah. But there's a huge shout out I want to give out there to Jim Ross, man, who, he headed up the Brazos Valley Small Business Recovery. That page has been phenomenal. There's a lot of information passed on that page. A lot of information we used as a small business to be able to find things like the grants and things like that. And so,
I just wish it would have been a little bit more, not a little bit more, but a little bit easier to kind of find it. But granted, like I said, I mean, it's just, the information was probably out there, but it just wasn't, it just didn't get to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the struggle of getting that communication to thousands of businesses here in town. And even so, it's kind of like you said, you can put it on TV, you can put it on the radio, but that's only going to go so far. Internet's only going to go so far. I mean, and when we're all sitting, trying to figure out how to keep our business running, there were very few times during the shutdown that I had time to watch TV and the internet and everything else when we're just trying to figure out how to keep our business afloat and how to get a place for our folks to come back to. So, that's, again, I think when people are listening on here, the gyms, the bars, you guys were made to be the stepchildren kind of out of the gate. Yeah. And probably I would imagine the fear is that that's another reality, another possibility that it could happen at any given moment as we start to see cases climbing back up again that, I don't know that there's still enough known for there not to be this knee-jerk reaction to say, because our contact tracing and things like that, I sit there and look at this and go, how can you narrow these back to a gym or to a bar or to whatever? Me
and Brian, we always kind of talk to each other kind of about it, because cases are inevitable, but most people have been really good about, when they do start to feel crummy, like they stay out of the gym. Yeah. But we've kind of talked to each other about not kind of going down that rabbit hole of like, okay, were you around this person? Well, that person was around this person. That person was around this person. That kind of contact tracing thing. Yeah. But when you start going down that rabbit hole, we're all in trouble. Yeah. We've all been around. Yeah,
you're going to eventually run across somebody in that little lineage of who they've been around that you're going to find out you probably come in contact with.
Somebody that's been around somebody that had it, and it just. And granted, some of it's merited, because you have to be careful. But when you start going down the rabbit hole of this person and this person and this person and this person, and I'm blessed, when I say I'm blessed to train a bunch of doctors too as well. And I trained one of the big shout out to Kelly Maedo. She owns Brazos Valley Urgent Care. Yeah. I've trained her and known her and her family for years. But she's always kind of my direct line. Just trying to if something does, kind of happen when I see things, I'm like, is this true? And she's like, no, that's not true.
That's good to have those people in your pocket too, to be able to reach back to as a resource.
And a friend of mine that lives up in Missouri, she's a military doctor. Shout out to her too as well, Lorraine Washburn. If I have questions over anything, that's kind of COVID related, and they can, unfortunately, they can only, or not unfortunately, but they can only tell me so much. Sure. When you ask questions, but if it's a question that is answerable from them, and they can help me with it, then they'll help me with it. But if it's not, like, no, I can't talk to you about that.
And again, I think that kind of lends to that last little point, which is getting information out to these businesses quickly. Yeah. Instead of it, looking like, well, we'll talk about these numbers another day, or this number isn't available to you, or we're not posting these numbers anymore, or whatever. The idea of just being transparent and sharing that information really helps the small business owners out there so that we can identify, look, man, this is a trend that's happening. We need to probably start preparing again.
KBTX does a great job about that too.
Yeah, that way we can be front side with it as small businesses. So the one little thing I want to throw out here before we end this deal off is, so prior to sitting down with you, you've got all kinds of social media and things like that nowadays that people, they can reward you or they can chastise you all in one spot. And so before we sat down here and I'd looked at Google review and saw your Google reviews, 4.9 out of 5. Yeah. But the one thing that caught me, it wasn't the 4.9 out of 5. It was the idea that everybody that went on there and talked about how great your place was to work out at, the response back for those people were, we love having you and this person and this person and this person from your family, naming each of those individuals out. And again, I think there's something to be said about the community that gets built in this CrossFit environment that you're able to go back and not just go, oh yeah, we know who this is, but we also know who these other three are that are in their family, their kids, their wife, their spouse, whatever. And so I think that's a big part of that community build for you guys as well too. I know that as a business owner, your goal is to give everybody a great experience when they come to you, and that experience again will just transition into more people showing up. And I'm glad to hear that you guys are back and kind of
appreciate it.
Seeing that you're getting propped back up by people who've come back to repay that community that you've built there at Sawed-Off CrossFit. I mean, because that's what people are, essentially that's what people would love to do, is not only be able to go and get that workout in, but to build that community with people around them who are like-minded in the idea of what they're trying to accomplish while they're there, but also that being led by people like you and Brian who are out there with a vision to be able to see this is what we want to see from CrossFit. And I'm sure you guys have bigger, better plans in the future. Post-COVID, where we can get past all of this stuff and you can kind of see your business continue to grow. And then we can kind of get to see another normal, not necessarily a new normal, but another normal that's a little bit more identifiable to be able to be cradling in your small business to continue to see it to grow. So I know it was a little bit of a pressure-packed situation to get you in here to sit you down and talk to you. And I appreciate the fact that you got over here to spend some time with us today. So if anybody's looking to come and check you out, I know you guys y'all normally do, like, if somebody shows up, y'all normally do like a class where they can come in and kind of.
Yeah, you can try us out for a week free. One thing that I do is that, all the phone calls that go, Sawed-Off CrossFit has a direct line, but all the numbers that go to that direct line come to me.
Okay.
All the emails, they come directly to me. So, if you call, if you email, I'm going to get it, and, I'm going to respond very, very quickly.
Okay.
So, if you want to try it out for free for a week, I always tell people, if you're worried about it, come try it out, see how it goes. You'll know pretty quickly whether it's something that you want to do.
I mean, what's free going to hurt you, right?
No harm, no foul. If you love it, you love it. If you don't, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, so if they're coming to see you, they're coming out to 4000 Harvey Road, out at College Station, like going out past Veterans Park.
Yeah, right in between Copy Bridge Bar and Grill and Skybreak Church.
Got it. And if they need a phone number to get a hold of you, what's the best number to reach you?
979-450-9545.
Okay, that was probably the hardest question I asked today. So.
I gotta remember that one.
You're like, no, I don't want to give my cell phone out while I'm on here.
It's out there anyways. Once it's out there in the world, everybody has it anyway.
There you go. So listen, again, I've known Terrance for a long time, and he's good people. He's doing an excellent job out there at continuing to grow Sawed-Off CrossFit. And if you're working out there, you're one of his clients that's out there, I'm sure you can line up to speak to it, and I'm sure we'd put a whole line of people out the door and around the building here to talk to the things that you and Brian are doing to give people a great place to work out, family friendly, building a community over there around a great program that you guys have grown out there. So I'm so proud of what you guys have accomplished.
Thank you so much.
A passion that you've now found that really gives you.
It only took me like 32 years.
That's right, man. Laser focused. Laser focused today, though. So again, if you're interested, go out, talk to Terrance, go out and talk to Brian. Those guys will get you hooked up and be a great opportunity for you to go out and meet with some of those people that are already out there. And by all means, I would probably guess that you would probably tell those guys, hey, talk to some of our members that are already out here. For sure. What do they love?
Check out our social media pages, just kind of see how, we rerun everything. There's a CrossFit Kids classes that we have too.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't even think to talk about that. I saw that on
CrossFit Kids
there.
classes that we have too. Also, you come work out, your kids work out while you work out.
That's awesome.
So it's all set up. It's all run well.
You're building it early.
Yeah,
building it early.
Get them started early, and it runs well too. So I got, like I said, I got zero complaints about that class at all.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, again, congratulations on your business. Let's continue to grow this thing. Continue to see you guys be successful out there. Anything you need from us, by all means, let us know. Thank you for coming out and spending some time with us
today. Come to M&M Apparel for all of my apparel needs, always.
We love taking care of you. It's easy to take care of good customers, man. So we appreciate everything you guys do for us. So.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Terrance.
Thank you, buddy.
Have a good day, man.
You too as well.